So here's the one you've all been waiting for, the chapter on stress. I mentioned it to you throughout the year that we'd go through this chapter at a pretty stressful time for you guys, but I never intended it to be this stressful. So maybe this will give you some comfort as we move forward through this. Chapter 25 is our chapter on stress. So people of all types. Some of you are noticing at home right now that you could maybe get used to this. Seniors, I get it. There's things you're missing, but looking at the big picture, this online learning thing, it's got its positives, right? But people of all types can be affected. This is one of the greatest portions of our year because we have opportunities for lots of dialogue, and it's unfortunate that we have to refrain from this dialogue. So I anticipate we're going to have a meeting here to talk about these things for you. In fact, after we introduce this lesson, I think might be a good time to meet and just kind of catch up on the holiday. So people of all types, man. Strong people, weak people, students, you guys, children, fifth and sixth graders go through different types of stress about going to school. I mean, you remember some of the trials and tribulations that you had when you went to school at that time. Okay, people that go to work, this is not an easy time for teachers. Just using us as an example, this is different for us. I'd rather be in class talking with you guys, and I'm sure you'd rather be there too. And then even babies, when they're in the womb, stressful events can occur, and we start to develop these responses to those stresses. What's the result? Sometimes tension or anger can come from stress. That's a response from me in some occasions. Fear. What if the stress is going to school after an embarrassing incident happened yesterday to a sixth grader? They're scared to go to school. Frustration. Stress can lead to frustration. What if your coworkers aren't pulling their weight and you're taking on more of the responsibility, right? Increase in blood pressure. Some stress responses do cause this, and I think I mentioned this to you guys during our chapter on cardiovascular health, but stress is a killer. As a result of blood pressure, heart rate, the stress on the cardiovascular system is pretty profound. And then even increases in adrenaline. In high stress situations, like you've just disturbed a nest of bees or wasps, and the adrenaline that comes out is meant to help us get out of that situation. Okay, so everybody responds differently. Some of you that have been placed into different types of stressors, whether it be performance-based or athletics-based tests, everybody responds differently. Some of us thrive on it. Some of us need these sort of stressors to thrive on in a given day. Our responses, they can result in a decrease in our efficiency. So during stress time, some of you might turn away from good study habits. Some people might turn away from doing their job. And even if you're thinking about something that you're stressing out over, problem solving becomes a big deal. You need to refocus, take a step back, move a step back in, okay? As a result of the changes to our outward environment, our internal environment starts to increase in these stress responses as well. So our immune system begins to fail. This is more in small children, but we start to see stomach pains. So the whole thing about the belly hurting or going to school because my stomach hurts and so forth, that is actually an indication of functional abdominal stress in our bodies that tell us that we're experiencing something that we don't like. And children have a difficult time relaying with their words what they're experiencing. Some people can experience heart palpitations, changes in that physiological marker, and then even fatigue and muscle aches. Should be a comma there. So many people will have different and varying stress responses, and the degree to which that individual can experience those stress responses can be different from person to person. This then is going to lead to sleep problems, and less rest equals more stress on the body. It was first relayed to us in the medical field as a syndrome in 1936 by Hans Selye. That's him right here. worked with sex hormones in rats. This is before PETA put their stamp on it. And, we still work with rats. And many people don't understand that research in mammals needs to occur to help humans. So they pick and choose the battles that they fight. And then we all either work out or it doesn't work out in the end. What a time to be alive. So what did he find? In all the rats placed under stress conditions, and these were pretty tough conditions for the rats, but okay, they're rats. Enlarged adrenal glands, so the glands that are responsible for adrenaline, which masks the stress response, were enlarged. That means they're producing more adrenaline. Shrunken lymphatic organs. These are our organs responsible for our immune system and our lymphatic system. And then bleeding gastrointestinal ulcers, stomach problems. So a syndrome is then defined as a set of signs and symptoms that occur together, characterize one particular disease. So we could talk about cardiology because that's what you guys know pretty well. It's more recent. If a person has shortness of breath, dizziness, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, what's it leading to? Cardiovascular. But prior to Cell, you notice that he's in 1936. In 1914, Walter Cannon came up with emotional stress. So not measured, but an indicator that people could talk about. So subjective conclusions. These three factors were objective. Selye could see this. Cannon could talk about it. So the reason we talk about Selye first is that he also studied Cannon's work and was convinced of a psychological and a physiological, so brain and body, origin of the stress. So Selye gets the credit because he came up with objective evidence. All right, but we're still talking about Cannon too. All right, so state or condition of the body produced by diverse noxious agents, a diversity of agents. Right now, staying at home, living in the same house with people, not being able to get out, see your friends, graduation, all these things, probably sending shivers up your spine right now. Those represent the diversity. We didn't see this coming, right? And then we're changing in our body. But the good news is, we're going to talk about some good news here in a minute. The stressor is any agent or any stimulus that produces the stress. In this case, it's obvious, but a looming test, or a baseball player, the pitcher that's throwing balls that are well outside the zone and occasionally hitting somebody. He's also throwing hard. For a 7th grader, that's going to be tough to handle. For a 16-year-old, it's less difficult to handle, but still difficult. So it leads us to talk about what we call the general adaptation syndrome. General adaptation syndrome. And we said earlier, all individuals handle those situations differently. So you guys know, I go to baseball. Many of you would be probably a little freaked out to stand in the box against a 96-mile-an-hour fastball, not really certain if it's going to come in there and hit you or not. You get used to that. It can still hurt. Your body develops reactions to this, but there's still a real fear when it comes to that. So some of you could get in there and think about doing it. Some of you want nothing to do with that. For me, at some points in my life, roaches. It was a developed response that my mother created in my body. Every time we saw a roach, we ran. So the other day I had one crawl on my arm. I was outside, had a little bit of a freak out, but I killed it in the end, which was nice. Dead roach. So what are the characteristics? There's a list of 4 here. Extreme stimulus. Would this viral situation be considered extreme? Yeah, positively. Its duration has kind of modified the extremity. At first, it was like, we're going to take a mini vacation. Then you started to realize something. So you're starting to see some of the extremity, but like I said, there's some good news coming. All right. So too little or too much of anything. Too much, staying at home. Too little, human interaction. So our perception is a big, big deal when it comes to this. Perception is relative. Some of you are handling this better. But perception. How bad of a situation is this? This baseball player, we watch him on the television, they have no problem with standing in there against that. But some guys on that ball field are a little bit more scared than others. And the guys that aren't scared sometimes get hit in the face. So the stimulus is going to be extreme. The thought of the stimulus being extreme that can lead to injury, we perceive it as being injurious, unpleasant, or painful, but it doesn't always have to be. Sometimes it's the perception of how painful it can be. It can be a threat, for instance. Think of something that can't hurt you that scares you, like a movie or a roller coaster, right? We think about this movie coming out to scare us. We know something's about to happen, but we're just sitting in our living room watching the television. Why do we buy into that? So real or imagined lead us to this. And then timing, of course, the timing of the stress is very, very difficult. If we had been quarantined during the summer, it may have been easier to manage because we're going to spend more time at home anyway and not miss out on so much. Obviously, travels and just doing things in the world and not having an opportunity to do that is stressful. But today's stress may not be a stress tomorrow. So for me, for instance, making these videos has been a new and challenging activity for me. On the front end, I felt awkward and uncomfortable, and that really hasn't changed too much, but I'm doing the best that I can. So the next time I have to make these videos, it might not be a stressor for me because I've already done it before, okay? And then timing, prenatal stress. This has to do with pregnancy that mom and baby are going to go through. So there's certain stressors on a pregnant lady that aren't going to happen to a normal, not normal, but a person who is not pregnant. So you just look at these pictures and you think of stressful situations outside of what we're dealing with now. Over here, this is the aftermath of a tsunami. Some of you guys, you remember Katrina pretty well at your age, and you remember what that was like. I don't have a house. I don't have things. I don't have a place to go. My family's displaced. I don't have money coming in, the family. That's a real stressor. Population density can be a stressor as well, especially in places here that have potential for famine, right? And then as a result, some of this is a stressor too. What's going to happen to our climate as the planet continues on the path that we're currently projecting in terms of finding resources and finding space? This is a predicted temperature increase in the last 30 years of this century when compared to 30 years in last century, 1960 to 1990. So if you just kind of look in here at Louisiana, wow, that's all the way up in like Tennessee. Arrow move, you know where we are. The projected temperature increase degrees Celsius is in the neighborhood of 4.5. That's around 10, 11 degrees average temperature increase. And you know as well as I do, 95 here in Louisiana really sucks. If it was 105, that would be intolerable. So that's why we have to think about the future, okay? So this is our chapter on stress. The good news is not going to be until we talk about the general adaptation syndrome, but it's coming. So let's plan to meet. You're supposed to be doing this on Tuesday at 9 o'clock. So let's plan to meet on Thursday at 8 o'clock. Yeah, I know you guys are happy about that. Perfect. That's something that I would do, isn't it? Yep, you got it. So Thursday, 8 o'clock, we're going to meet, and we're going to just have a little powwow. Bring your coffee, get yourself out of bed 30 minutes early, and we could just have a chill session about this stress and talk about some of these things. I think that's a great idea. All right? I'll see you Wednesday morning. Later.